My name is Stephanie Mitchell, and at 34, I thought I had everything figured out. A six-figure marketing executive job, a loving husband Brian, and our beautiful daughter Emily. Growing up with financially struggling parents shaped me into someone determined to never worry about money. For 2 years, I sent my parents $1,000 weekly so they could finally live comfortably in retirement. I never thought my generosity would lead to betrayal, especially on Emily's 8th birthday. Before I dive into what happened that day, tell me where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever discovered that the people you trusted most weren't who you thought they were. I grew up in a small 3-bedroom house on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. My parents, Margaret and Harold Thompson, worked incredibly hard, but always seemed to be one emergency away from financial disaster. Mom worked as a receptionist at a dental office, and Dad jumped between factory jobs, never staying anywhere long enough to build seniority or a pension. Despite their efforts, there was never quite enough money to go around. By the time I was 10, I understood what bill collectors' calls meant. I learned to dread the specific tone in my mother's voice when she answered the phone and realized who was calling. The lights went out twice that winter. We huddled under blankets with flashlights until Dad could borrow money from his brother to get them turned back on. I promised myself then that when I grew up, I'd never live that way. What confused me as I got older was seeing the pattern of their financial decisions. They'd struggle to make rent, then somehow find money for a new TV. Mom would clip coupons obsessively for groceries, but think nothing of charging a designer purse she couldn't afford. Dad complained about car payments, but bought a boat he rarely used, financing it at an interest rate that made my stomach churn when I later learned about personal finance. Despite their financial instability, they gave me and my younger brother Kevin as much love as any parents could. They attended every school event, celebrated our achievements enthusiastically, and genuinely wanted us to succeed. They just couldn't model financial responsibility, because they'd never learned it themselves. I started babysitting at 12 and got my first real job at 16, working weekends at the mall. Every dollar I earned went into a lockbox I kept hidden in my closet. My parents occasionally borrowed from me when things got tight, with good intentions to pay me back, but that rarely happened. I learned to keep my growing savings a secret. When college acceptance letters arrived, I chose State University on a partial scholarship. I worked 30 hours a week, while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. Those years were exhausting but formative. I met Brian during my sophomore year in an economics class. He came from a financially stable family, and had a healthy relationship with money that fascinated me. We balanced each other. His carefree nature softened my intense drive, while my ambition pushed him to reach higher. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Morgan Marketing Group. Brian and I moved in together, splitting expenses fairly while I aggressively paid down my student loans. My career trajectory accelerated faster than either of us anticipated. By 28, I was managing major accounts. By 30, I was promoted to executive level, nearly tripling my starting salary. We married when I was 29, bought our first home, and welcomed Emily the following year. Brian transitioned to freelance graphic design to have flexibility with childcare. We built a comfortable life with healthy savings, retirement accounts, and college funds for Emily. 2 years ago, during our annual Christmas visit, I noticed things falling apart at my parents' house. The roof was leaking, their ancient furnace barely functioned, and their refrigerator made alarming noises. Dad had retired early due to back problems, and Mom's hours at the dental office had been cut. They were $70,000 in credit card debt and barely making minimum payments. That night, after putting Emily to bed in my old room, Brian and I had a serious conversation. Our financial situation allowed us to help them substantially. We calculated that $1,000 weekly would cover their mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, medical expenses, and give them breathing room to enjoy retirement. Brian was hesitant, but supportive, knowing how important my parents were to me. The next morning, I laid out our proposal to Mom and Dad. They cried with gratitude, promising this would change everything. The arrangement began in January, with direct deposits into their account every Monday. I established only one condition: they needed to pay off their high-interest credit cards first. They agreed enthusiastically. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. They sent photos of home improvements, their garden flourishing, and occasional day trips. They appeared healthier and happier than I'd seen them in decades. They doted on Emily during visits, their newfound financial stability allowing them to be the grandparents they'd always wanted to be. Looking back, I missed early warning signs. There were Facebook posts from restaurants that seemed too expensive. Mom started wearing jewelry I didn't recognize. Dad mentioned golf club membership fees casually. When they mentioned a weekend in Las Vegas for their anniversary, I rationalized it away. They deserved some luxury after decades of struggle, right? The deposits continued weekly, no questions asked. Emily adored her grandparents, especially the elaborate stories Grandpa Harold would tell about magical kingdoms and brave princesses. She'd sit on his lap for hours, completely captivated. My mother taught her to bake cookies and make simple crafts. These moments seemed precious, the kind of memories I wanted Emily to cherish throughout her life. When Emily's 8th birthday approached, she specifically requested her grandparents' involvement. She wanted Grandma Maggie to help with the unicorn decorations and Grandpa Harold to be in charge of games. We planned the celebration for months, the magical unicorn extravaganza, with 20 of her classmates and neighborhood friends in our backyard. I ordered custom decorations, hired entertainment, and commissioned a professional 3-tier unicorn cake that cost more than my first car payment. If I'm being honest, I was probably compensating somewhat. My own childhood birthdays had been modest affairs, with homemade cake and a few friends playing in the yard. I wanted Emily to have the magical celebrations I had dreamed about. I wanted my parents to see what security and planning could provide. I wanted everyone to be happy. Planning Emily's birthday party became almost a second job. I created spreadsheets, timelines, and backup plans for every aspect of the celebration. The unicorn theme required specific colors, decorations, and activities. I spent hours searching online for the perfect unicorn plates, cups, napkins, banners, balloons, and party favors. Everything had to be coordinated in pastel pinks, purples, blues, and silvers with rainbow and glitter accents. The cake was a masterpiece in the making. I found Crestview Bakery, known for their elaborate custom designs, and worked with their head pastry chef to create a standing unicorn cake with a flowing rainbow manette and tail. The 3 tiers would feature different flavors: vanilla with strawberry filling, chocolate with chocolate mousse, and confetti cake with buttercream. The deposit alone was $200, and I had to book it 3 months in advance. For entertainment, I arranged for Marvelous Melanie, a popular children's entertainer, to do face painting, balloon animals, and lead unicorn-themed games. I also rented a small bounce house with rainbow colors and hired a professional photographer to capture every moment. The party favors were personalized unicorn gift bags containing plush unicorns, unicorn headbands, rainbow slime kits, unicorn stickers, and color-changing unicorn mugs. Brian watched all this with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Don't you think this is a bit much for an 8-year-old?" he asked one night as I stayed up late addressing invitation envelopes with metallic calligraphy pens. "She'll only turn 8 once," I replied, not looking up. "Besides, this is for all of us to enjoy." Emily deserves a special day. He kissed the top of my head. You're an amazing mom. Just don't work yourself to exhaustion over this. His worry wasn't unfounded. The party planning coincided with our company's biggest product launch of the year. As marketing executive, I was responsible for coordinating the entire campaign. My days started at 5 in the morning and often didn't end until midnight. I survived on coffee and determination, knowing both the product launch and Emily's birthday had to be perfect. 2 weeks before the party, Emily started asking daily if Grandma and Grandpa would help set up her unicorn kingdom. Grandpa promised to build a special unicorn stable, she told me excitedly. And Grandma's going to make rainbow cupcakes, just for me before everyone comes. I hadn't actually confirmed these specific plans with my parents, but they had enthusiastically agreed to help with party preparations when we discussed it over Sunday dinner a month earlier. We'll be there all day, Mom had promised. We wouldn't miss our princess's special day for anything in the world. The week of the party became increasingly hectic. The weather forecast threatened rain, causing me to rent a large tent as a backup plan. One of the entertainment performers cancelled, requiring me to find a last-minute replacement. The custom unicorn pinata arrived damaged, and I spent 2 hours repairing it with papermake and glitter glue after Emily went to bed. Thursday night, I called my parents to finalize details. So you'll be at our house by 9 on Saturday morning, right? We need to set up the decorations, arrange the tables and chairs, prepare the favor bags, and set up the activity stations before guests arrive at noon. We wouldn't miss it for anything, Mom assured me. Harold has been practicing his unicorn games all week. We've got some surprises for our little princess. That's wonderful, I replied, feeling relieved. Emily can't wait to see you. She's been talking about nothing else. We're looking forward to it too, honey, Dad chimed in. It's going to be the best birthday ever. Thank you both so much, I said, feeling genuine gratitude. Your help means everything, especially with how busy work has been. I really couldn't do this without you. After ending the call, I felt a wave of relief. Having my parents there early would take significant pressure off me and Brian. I could focus on last-minute details while they handled the basic setup. Plus, Emily would have special time with her grandparents before the chaos of 20 children arrived. Friday was my final preparation day. I left work early to pick up the cake, decorations, and rental items. The garage and dining room became staging areas for party supplies. I stayed up until 2 in the morning assembling favor bags and finalizing the schedule for the day. I tried texting my parents a reminder about the 9 o'clock arrival time, but received no response. I assumed they were already in bed, or possibly busy with their own preparations for Emily's special day. They had sounded so enthusiastic on the phone that I had no reason to worry. After double-checking my party planning checklist one final time, I collapsed into bed beside Brian, setting my alarm for 6 a.m. to begin the birthday extravaganza. Everything's ready, I whispered to Brian, who mumbled sleepily in response. Tomorrow is going to be perfect. With that declaration of confidence, I drifted off to sleep, completely unaware of the betrayal that awaited us when morning came. Mommy. Daddy. Wake up. It's my birthday. It's my unicorn birthday. Emily's exuberant voice and the bounce of her small body landing on our bed jolted me awake. The bedside clock read 6:23 a.m. Her face glowed with excitement, her unicorn pajamas slightly too small after a recent growth spurt. Happy birthday, princess. Brian wrapped her in a bear hug, as I blinked away my exhaustion. When are Grandma and Grandpa coming? Emily asked immediately. Grandpa said he'd be here super early to help build the unicorn kingdom. They'll be here at 9 o'clock, I assured her, sitting up and reaching for my phone. That gives us time to have a special birthday breakfast first. No messages from my parents. I sent a quick text, morning. We're up and getting ready. See you at 9. Then I focused on making Emily's favorite birthday breakfast, pancakes, with whipped cream and strawberries arranged in a smiley face. By 8:30, we had eaten, and Emily was dressed in her special unicorn dress with rainbow tulle and silver sequins. I started bringing decoration boxes to the backyard while Brian inflated balloons. Emily bounced around excitedly, repeatedly running to the front window to watch for her grandparents' car. 9 o'clock came and went. No sign of my parents. They are probably just running a little late, I told Emily at 9:15 as her face fell slightly. Why don't you help Daddy with the balloon arch while I call them? My call went straight to voicemail on both their phones. I left cheerful, but increasingly concerned messages. Hey Mom, just wondering where you are. We're starting setup and Emily's excited to see you. Call me back. By 9:30, Emily's disappointment was visible. But they promised, Mommy. Grandpa was going to make the special unicorn stable. I'm sure they're on their way, I assured her, though doubt was creeping in. I sent another text, everything okay? Emily's asking for you. Please call ASAP. 10 o'clock. Still no parents, no calls, no texts. The rental company arrived with tables and chairs. The tent company came to set up our rain contingency plan. Brian and I scrambled to direct them while simultaneously starting the decorations we had expected my parents to handle. Stephanie, I need to start the activity stations, Brian said at 10:30, frustration evident in his voice. The bounce house guys are here, and I haven't even started the balloon columns. I know. My voice cracked with stress. I don't understand where they are. They are not answering any calls. Emily sat on the porch steps, her unicorn dress rumpled, watching the driveway with increasing disappointment. Maybe they forgot it was today, she suggested in a small voice. No, sweetheart, they didn't forget. I knelt beside her, brushing back her hair. Something must have happened. Maybe their car broke down, or their phones aren't working. By 11 o'clock, with guests arriving in 1 hour, panic set in. The cake had been delivered, but sat unattended on the kitchen counter. Half the decorations remained in boxes. The activity stations were incomplete. Emily had gone from disappointed to tearful. They promised, Mommy. They promised. Her voice broke my heart. Grandpa said this would be the best birthday ever. Brian took over, shifting into crisis management mode. How about you help me with these unicorn streamers? We need a special birthday girl's touch. As they worked, I made a decisive call to my brother Kevin. Hey, have you heard from Mom and Dad today? They were supposed to be here hours ago, and they're not answering their phones. I'm getting worried. Kevin's long pause sent a chill through me. You don't know, do you? His voice was uncharacteristically serious. Know what? Steph, they're on a cruise. A Caribbean cruise. They left yesterday. The world tilted beneath me. That's impossible. They are supposed to be here. They promised Emily. Check their Facebook, Kevin said grimly. Rachel saw their posts this morning. They booked some deluxe package on Royal Caribbean. Apparently, it's their third cruise this year. My hands shaking, I opened Facebook while still on the phone. There they were with my parents, grinning widely on a cruise ship deck, cocktails in hand. The post timestamp showed 7:43 a.m. The caption read, Day 1 of our Caribbean adventure. Living our best life. Blessed cruise life retirement goals. The image of them smiling, carefree on a luxury cruise while Emily cried for them, sent a wave of nausea through me. The next photo showed their deluxe stateroom with a private balcony. Another displayed an elegant dinner from the previous night, crystal glasses filled with expensive wine. I've been sending them $1,000 every week, I whispered, more to myself than to Kevin. For 2 years. That's over $100,000. What? Kevin's shock was audible. Steph, I had no idea it was that much. I've been sending them $300 a month to help with their medications. My mind raced, calculating. The cruise they were on, I recognized the deluxe package from ads. It cost at minimum $15,000 per couple. And this was their 3rd cruise this year. I have to go, I told Kevin abruptly. Emily's party starts in 45 minutes, and nothing is ready. I'm coming over, he said immediately. Rachel and I can help. We'll be there in 20. Somehow, we managed. Kevin and Rachel arrived and took over the decorations. Brian handled the entertainment coordination. I plastered on a smile for the arriving guests and their parents, making small talk while feeling completely hollow inside. When Marvelous Melanie asked where Emily's grandparents were, as they were supposed to assist with some of the games, I mumbled something about a family emergency. Each time Emily glanced hopefully toward the driveway, my heart shattered a little more. The cake cutting was the worst moment. As everyone gathered to sing, "Happy Birthday," Emily's eyes filled with tears. But Grandma and Grandpa aren't here yet, she whispered as I knelt beside her. We can't cut the cake without them. Sweetie, they can't make it today, I finally admitted, unable to continue the pretense. But everyone else is here to celebrate with you. All your friends love you so much. She nodded bravely, wiped her eyes, and blew out her candles after everyone sang. But the wish she whispered was clear enough for me to hear. I wish Grandma and Grandpa were here. That night, after the last guest had left, the rentals had been collected, and Emily had fallen asleep surrounded by unicorn presents. I sat on our back porch and scrolled through more cruise photos. My parents parasailing. Shopping at the cruise port. A video of them dancing in the ship's nightclub. All while their granddaughter cried for them on her birthday. All paid for with money I had sent them to live comfortably. The betrayal wasn't just that they missed Emily's birthday. It was the deliberate choice to book a luxury cruise on that specific date. It was the complete disregard for their promises to her. It was the exploitation of my generosity to fund their extravagant lifestyle, while pretending they needed financial help. I had been played for a fool, and my daughter had paid the emotional price. That night, after the sugar crash and excitement wore off, Emily cried herself to sleep. Did I do something wrong? Why didn't they want to come to my party? She asked as I tucked her unicorn comforter around her shoulders. Her voice was small, confused, and it broke something fundamental inside me. No, sweetheart. You did absolutely nothing wrong, I assured her, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. Sometimes adults make bad choices. This was their bad choice, not anything you did. After she finally drifted off, clutching the stuffed unicorn Kevin and Rachel had brought, I closed her bedroom door and found Brian waiting in the hallway. His face was a storm of emotions: concern for Emily, anger at my parents, and an unspoken, "I told you so," that he was too kind to verbalize. They've been taking advantage of us, he said quietly as we moved to the living room, surrounded by the aftermath of birthday chaos. I've had concerns for months, Steph. The designer clothes in their Facebook photos. The new car your dad bought on a great deal. The home renovations that kept expanding in scope. Why didn't you say anything? I demanded, suddenly angry at him too, though I knew it was misplaced. I did, multiple times. His voice remained measured, though his fingers gripped his coffee mug tightly. You always had a justification. They deserved nice things after years of struggling. The money was helping them enjoy their retirement. They'd never had luxuries before. The truth in his words stung. I had made excuses, ignored evidence, and enabled their behavior. I feel so stupid, I whispered, tears finally coming after holding them back all day for Emily's sake. So utterly, completely stupid. You're not stupid, Brian said firmly, moving to sit beside me. You're generous and loving. They took advantage of those qualities. We talked late into the night, analyzing patterns I had willfully ignored. The casual mentions of expensive restaurants. The shopping bags from luxury stores in the background of video calls. The gradual upgrade of my mother's jewelry. The golf clubs. The weekend trips. All while they accepted my weekly $1,000 with constant reminders of how much they needed it, how it was just enough to keep them comfortable. Sleep evaded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents laughing on that cruise ship, drinks in hand, while Emily watched the driveway with tears in her eyes. For the first time in my adult life, I called in sick to work on Monday morning. Are you okay? Michael, my boss, asked with genuine concern. You've never missed a day in 5 years. Family emergency, I managed, my voice hollow. I need a day to handle things. The physical symptoms of betrayal surprised me. Loss of appetite. Insomnia. A constant knot in my stomach. Difficulty concentrating. I found myself staring blankly at walls, replaying years of interactions with my parents, reevaluating every conversation through this new lens of understanding. By Tuesday afternoon, my parents had still not reached out, despite surely knowing the party had passed. My hurt and confusion crystallized into something harder, sharper. I sent a text message I had drafted and deleted multiple times. I know you're on a Caribbean cruise instead of attending Emily's birthday as promised. She cried for you. How could you do this to her? To us? We need to talk when you return. Hours later, my phone chimed with their response. We needed this vacation, honey. We work hard helping with Emily all the time. She'll have many more birthdays. Don't be so dramatic. Their dismissive tone and complete lack of remorse shattered any lingering hopes that there might be some reasonable explanation. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. This was a deliberate choice made with full awareness of the consequences. With Brian's encouragement, I began a deeper investigation into my parents' spending. I reviewed bank statements, calculated totals, and constructed a timeline. Over 2 years, I had sent them $104,000. Based on their previous standard of living and stated expenses, this should have covered all their needs with ample surplus for savings and reasonable luxuries. Instead, I discovered an alarming pattern. 3 cruises this year alone, totaling over $40,000. A $65,000 kitchen renovation, completed 6 months ago. My father's $8,000 golf club membership. My mother's collection of designer handbags and jewelry. Weekend getaways to luxury resorts. Expensive restaurants several times weekly. Not a single dollar appeared to have been saved. The most painful realization was how this had affected our own financial goals. The money sent to my parents had delayed our retirement savings plan. We had postponed a kitchen renovation of our own. Emily's college fund contributions had been reduced. All because I believed my parents needed financial help to live comfortably. By Wednesday, I couldn't bear the isolation of my thoughts any longer. I called my best friend, Allison, who came over immediately with coffee and a listening ear. I've enabled them my entire life, I confessed, sitting at my kitchen table clutching my mug like a lifeline. Even as a teenager, I made excuses for their poor financial decisions. I convinced myself they just needed help, guidance, support. But they've been using me, Ali. Using my guilt and sense of responsibility to fund their lifestyle, while I worked myself to exhaustion. Allison, who had known me since college, nodded thoughtfully. You've always been the responsible one, Steph. The fixer. The provider. But boundaries aren't just about saying no to others. They're about protecting yourself and your family. Emily is the one who got hurt in all this, I said, fresh tears forming. She trusted them. They promised her. She doesn't understand why the people who are supposed to love her would disappoint her so deliberately. Children are resilient, Allison reminded me. But they also learn from watching us. What lesson do you want Emily to learn from this situation? That question haunted me for days. What was I teaching my daughter by allowing myself to be taken advantage of? By prioritizing my parents' desires over our family's well-being. By modeling relationships where love came with financial obligations. After a week of emotional turmoil, Brian suggested I consider therapy. This isn't just about the money or the birthday, he pointed out. This is about lifelong patterns in your family. Maybe talking to someone objective would help. I found Dr. Natalie Rivera, a therapist specializing in family dynamics, and scheduled an emergency appointment. In her calm office with soft lighting and comfortable chairs, I poured out the whole story: my childhood, my parents' financial irresponsibility, my compulsive need to help them, and the ultimate betrayal of Emily's birthday. What you're describing sounds like financial enabling, Dr. Rivera explained gently. It's similar to how people enable addiction. By consistently rescuing your parents from the consequences of their financial choices, you've actually prevented them from developing healthier behaviors. But they are my parents, I protested. I couldn't just let them struggle. There's a difference between helping and enabling, she pointed out. Helping addresses a crisis while encouraging independence. Enabling creates dependency and often damages both parties. We discussed the complex emotions at play: guilt, obligation, anger, betrayal. We explored my childhood role as the family rescuer and how that had shaped my adult relationships. We talked about appropriate boundaries and the challenge of establishing them later in life. The hardest part, Dr. Rivera warned, will be standing firm when they push back. And they will push back, often using emotional manipulation to regain control. As my parents' cruise continued, documented through daily social media posts that I couldn't stop myself from checking, I began preparing for the inevitable confrontation. With guidance from Dr. Rivera, support from Brian and Allison, and many tearful nights, I started formulating a plan to break the enabling cycle without severing the relationship entirely. Emily remained my priority through all of this. I explained the situation in age-appropriate terms, emphasizing that her grandparents still loved her, but had made poor choices. We focused on the many people who had shown up for her birthday and created new, positive memories to help overshadow the disappointment. Still, the betrayal cut deep for all of us. My parents hadn't just missed a party, they had revealed the true nature of our relationship. They valued luxury cruises over their granddaughter's happiness. They viewed my financial support not as generous help, but as an entitlement. They had taken my love and turned it into a transaction. And now I had to figure out how to move forward with this painful new understanding. After 10 days at sea, my parents returned from their cruise with tanned faces and seemingly not a care in the world. I arranged to meet them at their house on a Saturday afternoon, asking Brian to come with me for support. Emily would stay with Kevin and Rachel, protected from the confrontation I knew was inevitable. Remember what we discussed, Brian said as we pulled into their driveway. Stay calm, focus on facts, and don't let them derail the conversation with guilt trips or deflection. My stomach clenched at the sight of their house, the new landscaping, the recently painted exterior, the luxury car in the driveway that had replaced their practical sedan sometime in the past year. All purchased with my financial support. They greeted us at the door with smiles and hugs as if nothing were wrong. Mom held a gift bag with unicorn wrapping paper. "Where's our birthday girl? We brought her presents from the islands." The casual question, devoid of any acknowledgement of what they had done, nearly broke my resolve. Brian squeezed my hand, grounding me. "Emily isn't coming today," I said as we entered their immaculate living room, recently redecorated, I noted, with high-end furniture that hadn't been there during our last visit. "We need to talk." "About what, dear?" Mom placed the gift bag on the coffee table and perched on the edge of their new leather sofa. Dad settled into a matching recliner that still had the faint scent of newness. "About the fact that you chose to go on a luxury cruise instead of attending Emily's birthday party, after explicitly promising her you would be there." My voice remained steady, though my hands shook slightly. "About the fact that you've been spending the money I've been sending to help you live comfortably on cruises, renovations, and luxury items." Their expressions shifted simultaneously, first surprise that I was confronting them, then a rapid transition to defensiveness. "Now hold on," Dad leaned forward, his tone suddenly sharp. "We work hard helping you with Emily all the time. We deserved that vacation. We're not at your beck and call. You help with Emily perhaps once a month for a few hours," I corrected him. "And this wasn't about being at my beck and call. This was about keeping a promise to an 8-year-old child who adores you. A child who cried herself to sleep because her grandparents chose a cruise over her birthday. Children need to learn disappointment," Mom said dismissively. "She can't expect everyone to drop everything for her birthday. That's how kids get spoiled." The casualness of her cruelty stunned me into momentary silence. Brian stepped in, his normally gentle voice firm. "This isn't about Emily being spoiled. This is about integrity and honesty. You told her you would be there. You promised specific things. Then you deliberately booked a cruise for that exact time, without even telling us." "We don't need to report our schedule to you," Dad shot back. "We're adults. Adults who have been accepting $1,000 weekly from us." I found my voice again. "Money you claimed you needed to cover basic expenses. You make plenty of money," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You won't miss it. After everything we sacrificed raising you, we deserve to enjoy our retirement." There it was, the entitlement laid bare. In their minds, my financial support wasn't generosity, but obligation, repayment for their parental role. "I wanted to help you live without financial stress," I explained, fighting to keep emotion from overwhelming my voice. "Not fund luxury cruises while you lied to my face about needing the money." "We never lied," Dad insisted. "We do need help with expenses. But that doesn't mean we can't enjoy life too." As the conversation continued in circles, the doorbell rang. Mom answered it, returning with Kevin, who had apparently decided to join us after dropping Rachel and Emily at a movie. "I thought you might need backup," he said quietly, standing beside me. "Kevin, tell your sister she's overreacting," Dad immediately appealed. "We missed one birthday party. It's not the end of the world." Kevin's expression hardened. "Actually, I'm here because I agree with Stephanie. You've been taking advantage of both of us. I've been sending you money for medical expenses that clearly don't exist." For the first time, our parents looked genuinely alarmed. The united front they hadn't anticipated. "After all we did raising you," Mom's voice took on the wounded tone I recognized from childhood confrontations. "Working multiple jobs, sacrificing our dreams, giving you everything we could, and this is how you repay us. With accusations and ingratitude. This isn't about gratitude, I kept my voice level. It's about honesty and respect. You didn't respect Emily enough to keep your promise to her. You haven't been honest about your financial situation, or how you're spending the money we send. So what do you want? Dad demanded. A detailed accounting of every penny. We're not children. No, I said firmly. What I want is for you to understand the hurt you've caused. And to know that going forward, things will change. I explained that the weekly deposits would stop immediately. Instead of sending money directly, we would help in specific, controlled ways if genuine needs arose. Emily would still see them, but only with supervision until trust could be rebuilt. Their reaction was immediate and explosive. You can't cut us off. Mom's voice rose to a near shout. We need that money. We've built our life around it. You have your social security and Dad's pension, Kevin pointed out. The same income you had before Stephanie started sending money. You managed then. That's different, Dad insisted. We have commitments now. Financial obligations. Like country club memberships and cruises. Brian's tone remained calm, but pointed. Those aren't obligations. They're luxuries you chose to prioritize over your relationship with your granddaughter. The conversation deteriorated rapidly from there. Accusations flew. Old family grievances resurfaced. Mom cried. Dad shouted. I maintained my position, though every instinct urged me to back down, to restore peace at any cost as I had done throughout my life. This conversation is over, Dad finally announced, standing abruptly. If you want to punish us for taking one vacation, that's your choice. But don't expect us to beg for your help. This isn't punishment, I corrected him. It's a necessary boundary. I hope someday you'll understand the difference. They stormed out of the room, my mother grabbing Emily's forgotten birthday gift on the way. The four of us, Brian, Kevin, Rachel, and I sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Well, Kevin finally said, that went about as expected. Did they really not see anything wrong with what they did? Rachel asked, genuinely confused. They don't want to see it, I replied, feeling strangely hollow yet somehow lighter. Acknowledging it would mean accepting responsibility. We left shortly after, my parents remaining upstairs rather than saying goodbye. As we drove home, Brian reached over to squeeze my hand. You did the right thing, he assured me. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I nodded, watching familiar streets pass by, streets I had grown up on. I know. I just hope Emily doesn't end up paying the price for their behavior. We'll make sure she doesn't, Brian promised. We'll build a family based on honesty and respect. That's the best protection we can give her. That night, after picking up Emily and assuring her that her grandparents loved her despite their poor choices, I sat alone on our back porch. The confrontation had gone almost exactly as Dr. Rivera had predicted. My parents had deflected, minimized, guilt-tripped, and ultimately refused to take responsibility. The relationship was damaged, perhaps irreparably. Yet beneath the hurt and anger, I felt the first tendrils of something unexpected: freedom. Freedom from the crushing responsibility of supporting people who viewed my help not as generosity, but as obligation. Freedom from the constant worry about their financial well-being. Freedom from the role of family rescuer I had played my entire life. It wasn't the outcome I had wanted. But perhaps it was the outcome I needed. The Monday following our confrontation, I met with Janet, our financial advisor. Brian joined the meeting virtually, during his lunch break. I needed to understand the full impact of the past 2 years of financial support to my parents and create a recovery plan. So you've been sending your parents approximately $52,000 annually for 2 years, Janet confirmed, reviewing the numbers. That's $104,000 total, not accounting for any additional gifts, purchases, or support you've provided. Seeing the number displayed on her monitor made my stomach clench. Over $100,000 gone. Let's look at the opportunity cost, Janet continued gently. Had this money been invested in your retirement accounts at an average 7% return, you'd have approximately $113,000 today. Projected to retirement age, that would have grown to roughly $450,000. The figures were staggering. I had effectively traded nearly $500,000 of our future security for my parents' cruises and country club memberships. What about Emily's college fund? I asked quietly. Janet switched screens. Your contributions have been consistent, but lower than your original plan. You're currently about $24,000 behind the recommended savings schedule for her age. Brian and I exchanged pained glances through the video call. We had prioritized my parents over our daughter's future. Here's the good news, Janet said, shifting to a more optimistic tone. You're both young, with strong earning potential. Now that you're reclaiming this cash flow, we can adjust your financial plan to compensate. It's a setback, not a disaster. We spent the next hour creating a recovery strategy, increased retirement contributions, accelerated payments to Emily's college fund, and a modest emergency fund specifically for genuine family crises. The plan was solid, but would require discipline and time. That afternoon, I had my second session with Dr. Rivera. I recounted the confrontation with my parents in detail, including their reactions and my emotional response. You handled that extremely well, she commented. Especially maintaining your boundaries despite their emotional escalation. It doesn't feel like a victory, I admitted. It feels like failure, the failure of our relationship. Boundaries often feel that way initially, she explained. Particularly when they represent a significant change in established dynamics. Your parents are experiencing what we call an extinction burst, an intensification of behavior when previously successful strategies stop working. We discussed the complex emotions I was experiencing: guilt for abandoning them financially, anger at their exploitation and betrayal, grief for the relationship I had believed we had, and anxiety about the impact on Emily. One thing to prepare for, Dr. Rivera warned, is that they may attempt to triangulate through Emily. They might try to make her feel responsible for the rift, or use her to pressure you into resuming financial support. The thought of my parents manipulating Emily made my protective instincts flare. How do we prevent that? Limited, supervised contact initially. Clear, age-appropriate explanations. And being extremely consistent with your boundaries. That evening, Brian and I sat down with Emily for a difficult conversation. She had been asking about her grandparents since the birthday party, her confusion evident. Honey, I began carefully, you know how we've talked about choices and consequences. She nodded solemnly. Like when I chose not to do my homework and couldn't watch TV. Exactly. Well, Grandma and Grandpa made some choices that weren't very good. They promised to be at your birthday party, but decided to go on a vacation instead without telling us. Her small face scrunched in confusion. But why would they do that? Didn't they want to see me? Brian took over, his voice gentle. They do love you, Em. But sometimes adults make mistakes, just like kids do. Right now, Mommy and Daddy are helping Grandma and Grandpa understand that breaking promises has consequences. Are they in timeout? She asked with the simple logic of an 8-year-old. I smiled despite the pain. Something like that. We'll still see them, but things will be a little different for a while. This framework seemed to make sense to her. We assured her that none of this was her fault, that she was deeply loved, and that we would work through this as a family. The following week brought the expected backlash from my parents. First came angry texts accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. When those received no response, their approach shifted to guilt and health concerns. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof because of this stress, my mother wrote. If something happens to him, I hope you can live with yourself. I showed the message to Dr. Rivera during our next session. She nodded knowingly. This is classic emotional manipulation. Notice how it places responsibility for your father's health on your decision rather than on his reaction to that decision. With her guidance, I crafted a brief, firm response. I'm sorry to hear about Dad's health concerns. I recommend he consult his doctor. Our decision stands, and further attempts at manipulation will result in decreased contact. Their next strategy involved the extended family. My aunt called, berating me for abandoning my parents after all they had done for me. An uncle sent an email detailing how disappointed he was in my selfish behavior. Cousins posted vague social media comments about honoring their father and mother. It became clear that my parents had shared a heavily edited version of events, casting themselves as victims of an ungrateful daughter. I chose not to engage in the drama or attempt to correct their narrative. Those who truly knew me would reserve judgment. Those who didn't matter to my immediate family's well-being. Kevin faced similar pressure, but remained steadfast in our united approach. I told Uncle Steve that if he wanted the full story, he was welcome to see the documentation of how they spent our money, he told me during one of our now regular check-in calls. He backpedaled pretty quickly after that. The stress took its toll. I developed insomnia, lost weight, and struggled to concentrate at work. After a particularly bad week, where I missed a major deadline, my boss Michael called me into his office. Stephanie, you've been with us for years, and I've never seen you like this, he said, concern evident. What's going on? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. I'm dealing with a family crisis. It's affecting my sleep and concentration. Michael nodded thoughtfully. Take 2 weeks. Paid leave. Sort things out. The team can cover your projects. His kindness nearly broke my composure. I can't just leave everything. You can, and you will, he interrupted firmly. You're valuable to this company long term. Consider this an investment in your well-being. Those 2 weeks became a turning point. Without work pressure, I focused entirely on healing. Daily therapy sessions. Long walks with Brian. Picnics with Emily. Conversations with Kevin and Rachel about our shared experiences growing up. I read books about family dynamics, financial boundaries, and breaking generational patterns. Midway through this leave, my mother made her most dramatic bid for resumed support. She called Brian directly, sobbing that she had found a lump in her breast and needed financial help for medical care. I'm so sorry to hear that, Brian responded calmly. Using the script we had prepared for such scenarios. What did your doctor recommend? Her hesitation spoke volumes. I haven't seen anyone yet. I just found it. I understand your concern. Please make an appointment immediately. If your insurance doesn't cover necessary treatment, send us the official documentation from your doctor and the insurance company, and we'll discuss options then. No documentation ever arrived. No further mention of any health concern followed. It had been a manipulation tactic, pure and simple. By the end of my 2 weeks away from work, I had developed a comprehensive plan with Dr. Rivera for moving forward. 1. No direct financial support unless verified emergency with proper documentation. 2. Monthly supervised visits with Emily, initially at public locations. 3. Clear communication guidelines prohibiting guilt trips, manipulation, or discussions of financial matters with Emily. 4. Continued therapy to strengthen my boundary-setting skills. 5. Regular check-ins with Kevin to maintain a united front. With this framework in place, I returned to work with renewed focus and determination. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since Emily's birthday, it felt possible. The 2 weeks away from work provided the space I desperately needed to focus on healing. Each morning, I woke with purpose rather than dread. Instead of checking emails, I journaled my thoughts and feelings, a practice Dr. Rivera had recommended to process my emotions. Brian, Emily and I attended a family therapy session with Dr. Rivera to ensure we were handling the situation in a way that would protect Emily's emotional well-being. Emily, do you have any questions about what's happening with your grandparents? Dr. Rivera asked gently during our session. Emily fiddled with the unicorn bracelet on her wrist, a gift from Kevin and Rachel, before answering. Why are they mad at us? Is it because I was sad they missed my party? My heart constricted at her question. Even now, she was internalizing blame that wasn't hers to carry. No, sweetheart, I said firmly. This isn't about you at all. Remember how we talked about how Grandma and Grandpa were making some choices that weren't very good with money? She nodded solemnly. Well, when people make choices that aren't good, sometimes they get upset when they are asked to make better choices. They are not mad at you. They are upset because things are changing. Dr. Rivera guided us through explaining the situation in terms Emily could understand about promises, trust, and how relationships need honesty to stay healthy. We assured her that we would still see her grandparents, just in different ways for a while. Like when I have a playdate with Madison at the park instead of at our house, she asked, working to understand. Exactly like that, Brian confirmed. Sometimes changing where and how we spend time with people helps everyone remember how to treat each other kindly. This framework seemed to make sense to her 8-year-old mind. Dr. Rivera provided us with children's books about family changes, boundaries, and emotional processing that we could read together. The session helped solidify our approach as a family unit. Brian and I were on the same page, presenting a united front while remaining sensitive to Emily's feelings. It strengthened our resolve to handle this difficult situation in a way that would break unhealthy patterns rather than perpetuating them. During this healing period, I spent considerable time with Kevin, comparing notes about our childhood and recognizing patterns we had both normalized. We recalled how our parents had always lived beyond their means, how financial emergencies were constant yet somehow there was always money for luxuries, how guilt was weaponized whenever we questioned their decisions. Remember when Dad bought that boat? Kevin said during one of our coffee meetings. Mom had been crying the week before about not being able to pay the electric bill, then suddenly there's a boat in the driveway. And when I asked how they could afford it, Dad said I was being disrespectful, I added. I ended up giving them my graduation money to help with utilities that month. These conversations were painful but illuminating. We weren't just dealing with a recent betrayal, but with lifelong patterns of financial manipulation and emotional control. Kevin and his wife Rachel had experienced similar, though less extreme, issues. I've been sending them money for their medication costs for years, he admitted. $300 monthly. Rachel kept saying it seemed fishy that they never had receipts or specifics about which medications. Together, we developed strategies for maintaining boundaries while offering appropriate support. We agreed to communicate regularly about any contact with our parents to prevent them from playing us against each other. Gradually, I rebuilt my daily routines. I returned to work with a new perspective, more aware of my tendency to take on excessive responsibility. I had a candid conversation with my boss Michael about creating healthier work-life boundaries. "I've noticed you tend to volunteer for every challenging project," he observed. "That's admirable, but not sustainable." "It's part of a pattern I'm working to change," I admitted. "I've always been the fixer, the one who handles everything." Jessica, a co-worker who had become a friend, shared her own experience with family boundary issues over lunch one day. "It took me years to stop letting my mother's emotional needs dictate my life," she told me. "The guilt was overwhelming at first, but it gets easier." Her understanding helped me feel less alone. I began to recognize that my situation, while painful, wasn't unique. Many people struggled with family dynamics and boundary setting. 3 months after the confrontation, my mother reached out with a text message that seemed different from her previous attempts at manipulation. "Emily's school picture came up in my Facebook memories today. I miss her. I miss you too. No guilt trip. No financial requests. No accusations. Just a simple expression of loss." After consulting with Dr. Rivera, I responded with equal simplicity, "We miss you too. If you'd like to see Emily, we could meet at Riverside Park this Saturday for an hour. Brian and I would both be there." They accepted the invitation. That first supervised visit was awkward and tense, but Emily was delighted to see her grandparents. We kept conversation light: Emily's school projects, the changing seasons, neutral topics that avoided our conflict. As they were leaving, my father pulled me aside. "This is humiliating, you know. Being treated like we can't be trusted with our own granddaughter." "Trust is earned," I replied quietly. "And right now, we're rebuilding it. This is the first step." He didn't respond, but I noticed he didn't argue either. A small sign, perhaps, of recognition. The structured visits continued monthly. Sometimes they went well. Other times my parents would make passive-aggressive comments, or attempt to question Emily about our finances. On those occasions, Brian or I would smoothly intervene and redirect the conversation. 5 months after Emily's birthday, we received the first tangible evidence that our boundaries might be having an impact. My mother called, asking if I could help her create a budget. "The country club membership is up for renewal, and we're realizing we can't afford it anymore," she explained, her voice tense with pride. "I thought maybe you could help us figure out our expenses, since you're good with that sort of thing." It wasn't an apology, or even an acknowledgement of their past behavior, but it was a small step toward reality. With cautious optimism, I agreed to help them create a basic budget during our next visit, with clear parameters that this was guidance only, not financial support. 6 months after the birthday incident, Emily's emotional wounds had begun to heal. She no longer asked daily about her grandparents, or worried that their absence was somehow her fault. The supervised visits, while not ideal, provided structure and safety for rebuilding relationships. Brian and I had grown stronger through the crisis, our communication more open and honest than ever before. We had difficult conversations we had previously avoided, addressing not just the situation with my parents, but other areas where we could improve our partnership. Kevin and Rachel had maintained their own boundaries with our parents, creating a united family approach that prevented the divide-and-conquer tactics that had worked in the past. We supported each other through difficult moments and celebrated small victories. My parents continued to struggle with the new reality. Some days brought hints of progress, questions about budgeting, less extravagant social media posts, moments of genuine connection with Emily during visits. Other days brought relapses into old patterns, subtle guilt trips, emergencies that dissolved under questioning, attempts to circumvent our boundaries. But slowly, incrementally, change was happening. Not the immediate transformation I had naively hoped for, but the gradual, halting progress that real change often requires. They were facing the consequences of their financial choices for perhaps the first time in their adult lives, learning painful, but necessary lessons about sustainability and priorities. As for me, I was learning too about setting boundaries without guilt, about distinguishing between generosity and enabling, about breaking generational patterns. I was becoming the person I needed to be, not just for my own well-being but for Emily's future. The journey wasn't over. Trust, once broken, requires time and consistent effort to rebuild. But 6 months after that devastating birthday betrayal, I could finally see a path forward, not to the relationship I had once imagined with my parents, but to something new, something healthier, something based on reality rather than illusion. And for now, that was enough. 6 months to the day after Emily's ruined birthday party, we celebrated her half-birthday with a small, intimate gathering. Just the 4 of us: Emily, Brian, myself, and Emily's best friend Madison, at our favorite ice cream parlor, followed by an afternoon at the Children's Museum. No elaborate decorations or expensive entertainment, just genuine connection and joy. As I watched Emily laughing while creating bubble sculptures in the museum's water play area, I realized something important. She was happy. Not just momentarily amused, but deeply, securely happy. The shadows that had lingered in her eyes after the birthday disappointment had finally faded. "Mom, look," she called out, creating an enormous bubble that engulfed her arms. "I'm a bubble monster." Brian slipped his arm around my waist. "She's resilient," he murmured. Kids often are when they have stability and honesty. That evening, after Emily was asleep, I had my final scheduled therapy session with Dr. Rivera. We had agreed weeks earlier that I had developed sufficient tools and perspective to continue my journey without regular sessions, though the door remained open for check-ins as needed. "When you first came to me," Dr. Rivera noted, reviewing her initial assessment, "you described yourself as feeling hollowed out by betrayal. How would you describe yourself now?" I considered the question carefully. "Reclaimed," I finally answered. "Like I've taken back parts of myself that I had given away without realizing it. My time, my energy, my financial security, but most importantly, my sense of what I'm responsible for and what I'm not." "That's an enormous shift," she acknowledged with a smile. "What do you see as the most significant change in your family dynamics?" "Authenticity," I said without hesitation. "We're relating to each other as we actually are, not as we wish we were or pretend to be. It's harder in many ways, but also liberating." The relationship with my parents had evolved in unexpected ways over the past months. After their initial resistance, my mother had gradually begun to engage with the budgeting process. My father remained more distant, but had stopped making passive-aggressive comments during our supervised visits. 3 weeks earlier, they had experienced their first genuine financial crisis since our support ended. Their air conditioning system failed during a heatwave. Instead of immediately calling me for money, they had obtained 3 repair quotes and applied for a payment plan through the vac company. They had called to inform me of the situation, but explicitly stated they weren't asking for financial help. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Perhaps the first time in their adult lives they had faced a financial challenge without expecting someone else to solve it for them. Kevin and Rachel had observed similar subtle changes. During a Sunday dinner at their house the previous weekend, Kevin had mentioned that our father had asked him about retirement account options. "Not that he has much to invest," Kevin had said, "but the fact that he's even thinking about saving rather than spending seems significant." Our parents would likely never become models of financial responsibility. Decades of entrenched habits couldn't be completely overcome in 6 months. But the enabling relationship had been broken, creating space for them to develop healthier patterns or not, based on their own choices. As for the extended family, most had eventually backed away from the conflict after the initial drama. A few, including my Aunt Patricia, had taken the time to hear our perspective and acknowledged the legitimacy of our boundaries. Others maintained a distance that was ultimately their loss. Financially, Brian and I had recovered more quickly than anticipated. Without the weekly $1,000 drain, we had accelerated our retirement contributions and Emily's college fund. The kitchen renovation we had postponed was now scheduled for the fall. We had even begun researching volunteer opportunities to model healthy financial generosity for Emily. My career had found a new balance as well. I remained committed to excellence, but no longer felt compelled to prove my worth through constant overwork. I had turned down a promotion that would have required extensive travel, prioritizing time with my family over career advancement. The company had responded by creating a flexible leadership role that utilized my skills without demanding excessive hours, a solution that benefited everyone. What would you say is the most valuable lesson you've learned through this experience? Dr. Rivera asked as our final session drew to a close. I thought about Emily's half-birthday celebration earlier that day, simple, joyful, unmarred by extravagance or expectation. I thought about the honest conversations Brian and I now had about money, values, and priorities. I thought about the boundaries that protected our family's well-being while still allowing for relationship with my parents. That true love doesn't come with a price tag, I answered. It doesn't require financial sacrifice or enabling unhealthy behaviors. Real love is honest, even when honesty is uncomfortable. It sets boundaries, even when boundaries cause temporary pain. It prioritizes long-term well-being over short-term peace. Dr. Rivera nodded approvingly. And what would you say to someone facing a similar situation to yours? I'd tell them that it's possible to love someone deeply while still saying no to their unhealthy expectations. That generosity, without boundaries, isn't really generosity, it's enabling. That breaking unhealthy patterns feels terrible in the moment, but creates space for something healthier to grow. As I drove home from that final therapy session, I felt a sense of closure that had eluded me for months. Not because all problems were solved, they weren't. Not because my parents had completely transformed, they hadn't. But because I had finally accepted the reality of our relationship rather than clinging to the illusion I had constructed. I still loved my parents. I always would. But now I loved myself and my daughter more. By protecting our boundaries, I was teaching Emily the lesson I wish I'd learned years earlier. True love doesn't come with a price tag. That night, I wrote in my journal one last reflection on the journey of the past 6 months. The money is gone, over $100,000, that could have secured our future, or Emily's education. But what we've gained is worth far more. We've gained truth, boundaries, and authenticity. We've broken a generational pattern of financial dysfunction that might have continued through Emily into another generation. We've built a foundation of honesty that will support our family long after any money would have been spent. In losing what I thought was my responsibility, I found what truly matters. And for that painful but necessary lesson, I am strangely, unexpectedly grateful. Thank you all for following my story. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? What helped you maintain those boundaries even when it was painful? Comment below with your experiences. Your insights might help someone else facing a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's possible to love someone without enabling destructive behavior. Remember, you deserve relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation or manipulation. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your boundaries.